Well, welcome, Peace Ravenwood, to the Soul Seekers podcast, which Soul Seekers is for people who are wanting to find meaning and direction in life in this rapidly changing world, people who are living their life purpose. And Peace, you strike me as someone who fits well into that category of stepping up and living your life purpose. So, welcome.
Thank you, Dennis, for inviting me to speak with you today. It's a pleasure.
Great. And I submitted some questions in advance, but one that came to me since then, just to start with something a little different, is Peace, your name. Is it something you were given as a child, or is it a name you adopted later on as an adult?
Oh, it's a great question. Yes, it's one that I do get asked quite a lot because it's very unusual to carry this name. And it is my medicine given name, not my birth name. My birth name is Aurora or Dawn. And yes, my father gave me my name, but years later when I entered the medicine space, into this multidimensional universe that we work in, I was invited to meet who I truly am, or am becoming, and her name is Peace.
Wow. So that's a nice segue into the next question, which is, tell me about your spiritual journey. How did it begin and what were the milestones?
Oh, wow. Yes. So obviously I am in my mid-50s now, so I've got a lot of lived experience on this earth. And a lot of it was, like many of us, very traumatic. You know, the formative years as a baby and growing up were quite traumatic, and a lot of events happened afterwards. But when I was in my 20s, I embraced my more ancestral path in paganism and druidry. And growing up with my grandfather's garden was an introduction to the world of plants and fruits and vegetables and things like that. But in my late 20s, I went to a weekend called Herbs Hands Healing in Somerset, and it was a herbal medicine weekend. And I loved every minute of it. You know, I had my beautiful dog with me who never left my side. And we just had an amazing time. And I came home with my first medicine teacher, which was free. You know, and that was kind of how I became initiated into the world of plant spirit medicine, even though back then I just thought comfrey was an amazing plant to work with for healing and healing the land.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a big journey since. That was the biggest milestone, really.
Yeah. Tell me about plant spirit medicine. Are you saying that all plants have a spirit?
Yeah, absolutely. We are livingness, you know, no matter what form we are, whether that is a rock or a crystal, which are just pretty rocks, really, or trees or plants, humans, animals, birds, fish, elements. Everything is livingness, and we all carry amazing sentience and frequency.
Yeah. So you came home with your first plant teacher, the comfrey, and what happened next?
More stuff that we live with every day, more trauma. I was in a very destructive, abusive relationship at the time, but plants and my dogs kept me sane. You know, I was, it really wasn't until, I mean, I've lived in France and I gardened biodynamically and organically over in France, and our local mayor was a botanist, so we spent many hours talking about medicine plants, and he would come and look at my garden, and he was a local pharmacist as well, was our mayor. So it was amazing meeting people along the path that kept me anchored in nature and nature's teachings. But when I left, I escaped my marriage and found another me, a new me eventually, and met my now soulmate, Anthony, who we've been together 20 years this May. I was able then to be supported fully in my own living expression without anyone to tell me otherwise, you know, instead of being put down and manipulated and coerced and gaslit.
And did the plant spirits help you with that?
Yes, when I actually realized that plants talk to me and, you know, they talk to us all. We just have such busy minds. So we don't often hear other beings communicating. But one of the big pivotal moments for me was when I met the essence of cacao, or the energy and representation of cacao plant spirit medicine. She was my biggest awakener.
Well, tell me about the first time you encountered cacao.
That's a fun one, because I was sat in my yurt in Northamptonshire with a friend, and she had bought a bar of conscious chocolate love potion number 9. And I had not really been a chocoholic at all. I'm more of a savory person. I still am. But I had just a square of this chocolate, and I'm like, hang on a minute. I don't quite know what is happening, but something did. And then when we moved to Glastonbury not long after that first initial introduction to cacao. I mean, this was a confectionery, but it had a difference to it because it was unprocessed. And we moved to Glastonbury, and I ended up working in a store on the high street that we sold conscious chocolate. And it continued from there. And in the months that followed, I started experimenting with cacao. And then I became raw vegan. And to this day, you know, I'm not raw vegan now, and I will never return to that path. However, it was an instrumental decade or so in my plant medicine path, because it assisted me in shedding the old versions of myself who I had conditioned myself to accept, and opened me up to a whole new world of discovery.
So this is ingesting cacao. When you commune with other plants, do you ingest them or just talk to them? What happens?
It depends on the plant, and it depends on where we meet. Not always ingested. For example, I am a guardian of Guashima, which is the San Pedro cactus. And I've been a guardian of this grandfather medicine for many years now. But we have one with us all the time, yet we don't consume this medicine. I am due to re-immerse into his presence soon on my own. I go off into nature and in my van on my own and do a vision quest. And I will spend the day in deep communication with grandfather, you know, because I only make the medicine very occasionally. And it's much more gentle than a purging situation where we are in deep process for many, many hours, usually 24 hours. So there's different ways of working with medicine plants. And a lot of the time you can do this when you're out on a walk, you know, notice which plants, trees, beings are calling your attention, and then strike up a relationship with them by saying hello. And every time you go back, see if they're calling you again, and build the relation, just like you would a person, you know.
And they give you messages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. When we're working in that liminal space of nothingness here, we can hear and then receive the messages of trust from nature.
Wonderful. So you began your journey with cacao with one square of chocolate. Where did it take you next?
So it took me down the path of being a raw chocolate creator. And I had my chocolate bars in some boutique stores in the UK, but that became too much because I was never out of the kitchen and I needed my hands in the soil and my body on the soil. So after about 2 years, I closed that side down. But in the meantime, I had been developing a deeper medicine relationship with cacao in her purity, and was invited by my guides, or the essence of cacao as well, to create a drink with very powerful herbs and spices in that would assist in our expansion process or ascension process. Wake us up and show us the magnificence that is all around us, hidden from sight by the matrix.
Sounds exciting. What kind of transformation have you seen in people with cacao?
Oh my goodness. So many awakenings, if you want to use that word, or realizations. The veil is lifted from our sight, our true sight, from deep within our beingness, and we begin to see the world of the unseen and really tap into all the things that we're told are impossible and don't exist. We can, by deeply unconsciously connecting with the plant spirit medicine world and the world of the unseen teachers, the ascended masters, the angels, archangels, guides, become so much more than this third dimensional self, because we are so much more than that. You know, this is just a suit we wear for a while. What we carry inside is so much more than we could imagine.
So cacao opens you up to these other dimensions.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Now you've talked about the spirit of the plant. Is there something physiological going on as well when you take cacao?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't list all the chemical components of cacao when it is from a very sacred source, but there are over 300 active chemical compounds in cacao when it is in its purest form. And so when you consider that, how that interacts with our metabolic body and how it connects in as the essence, the energetic frequency, is it any wonder that our life is changing when we devote ourselves to doing that process? You know, of course, you can just drink cacao and go, God, that was a really nice cup of hot chocolate, and not listen to those subtleties that come through energetically and physically. But when you drink a plant medicine with purpose and intention, you notice so much more happening.
Drinking cacao in a sacred way, how do you create the sacred space?
So this is a deeply personal one for whoever is going to be doing this work. You know, it looks different for everyone because not all of us resonate with one set way of doing things. So the answer is there's no wrong way to set an intention. Obviously, cleanliness is one of the big things when we are intending to do any work that is devotional or sacred. So cleaning the space and setting the scene around you. I mean, that could just be as little as just cleaning your space, you know, as you would do your housework. It could be just as simple as that, or you could then use some incense or some smudge sticks, like candles, bring your crystals. Your journal is important because whatever you receive, you need to remember that. So writing that down and documenting it is one of the big things that I always recommend doing. And then, you know, whilst you're doing that, your intention is being created and directed at your process and your immersion into what I call a sacred pause. It's sacred time for your soul to connect deeply with your human in order to give you guidance in the direction which might be arising next for you.
Yeah. And is it different when you do it in a group as opposed to when you do it on your own?
Yeah, totally, because we've got group energy dynamic. And, each participant will have a different choice to make on what they would like to focus on for them. And it's just like working in the quantum space, is what is of the most intense importance for that person right now that they are asking for guidance with. And I'm aware of giving each participant enough space around them physically to not blur their energy body or physical body with that of their next person to them, because it's so easy to have crossover. And I've experienced this many times in groups. I'm picking up stuff that isn't mine. And when we feed back, it's actually, a lot of the time it's beautiful, because we work very carefully with participation to make sure that people leave baggage behind, that's not theirs. And finding out that with a one-to-one session first is so that they can come into the space knowing that what they're bringing is just for them, and it's not like their partner or their children or work stuff coming in, even though they can still work with that if they need to in the space.
And that one-to-one session, would that be with cacao?
With or without, yes, it's totally, it's more finding out who they are right now and who they seek to become more of, and what it is that they are seeking from participating in a medicine ceremony, and ensuring that their clear intentions are set first, and anything needing management before coming into a group situation can be done.
Yes, and you can do that in that one-to-one session.
Yeah. We can do a quick clearing and transmutation process.
Yeah. Now, we met on the group that Luke Scott III put together, studying quantum regression and integration therapy. How did you get involved in that?
Oh my word. Well, I'm glad I did. I've been sort of following Luke for quite a while before I took the plunge to train with him. And as a medicine practitioner, I was already familiar working in that liminal space of nothingness and surrender, and multidimensional communication pathways. So I felt that stepping into quantum regression was a natural choice to take my journey and my offerings into almost a more, and I don't do structure very well because I choose not to, because the plants and my communication, they're not structured at all. They just come through. But I thought, a bit more sort of frequency tapping and learning to navigate the quantum field better. And it's exceeded what I ever thought that it could be.
And do you combine it with cacao at all?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. When I'm working with a client, I will have usually had my cacao before our session to set me into that altered state of consciousness.
And does the client take cacao?
No, not unless they're requesting, or that they are already working with cacao.
I see.
That's totally personal to them. I've just got a cup of lovely herbal tea with my cleanse herbs in today. So I have had my cacao this morning. So
okay. And tell us a bit more about cacao and how it differs from cocoa or chocolate.
Oh my word. So yes, massively is the answer to that one. Cocoa is a very refined product and very processed, so which is why it carries a very cheap price, and really it doesn't have any benefits other than it tastes like chocolate. It has no nutritional value, it has no superpowers or anything like that, and it is certainly not ever used in sacred work. And that goes the same for cacao powder. Cacao and cocoa are the same. They're just a byproduct, a fibrous byproduct that is used in confectionery, baking, etc., etc. They've just been very, very cleverly marketed to look different. The only difference really on the shelf with cocoa powder and cacao powder is that cocoa powder can often have hidden toxic ingredients in it, like white sugar powder. And
I looked at my cocoa. I drink a lot of cocoa, and it says it has potassium carbonates in it.
Interesting. So it's basically a filler. Dilutes.
I think it's something to do with stabilizing it as well.
Yeah, it's nonsense. But if you buy, if you're just wanting something quick and instant, like an instant coffee, for example, just using that analogy, just buy organic cacao powder, and you can get that cheap in the supermarkets. Mostly Aldi do it, but it's, again, you are not going to have any form of medicine journey with that product at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it just tastes nice.
So so not all the cacao out there is ceremonial grade. What's the ceremonial grade stuff that you use?
Great question. Yes, the ceremonial grade tag is being widely used at the moment to the detriment of this sacred plant medicine. It's rather like, again, another marketing hype that the corporations and clever people use. Most cacao is mass grown in very poor countries, and it's rather like our industrial farming. It's often monocropped. The jungle with all the other medicine plants and biodiversity is trashed. And when you consider that cacao needs 30 years to grow from seed to harvesting for the first time, 30 years, this is why she is so precious, and why I speak out against the hype that is being put out there into the space of social media, etc. And the carrying of the tag ceremonial grade is a marketing lie. They're just doing it. They're buying in mass-produced, commercially grown from poor countries, either Africa or Venezuela, for example. And the cacao does not carry the resonance that it does when it's grown in South America through Guatemala, Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, where the farms are tiny family farms. They're heirloom seed. They have been working this land for generations, as you can see, with the amount of years that she needs to grow to full harvest for the very first time. So, and when you are looking at how to work with a medicine plant, you meet the baby of the mother, so the seed, and you devote your life to caring for that baby right up to adulthood, when she then cares for you when you're an elder. So this is the life cycle of medicine plants. It's from seed all the way through life. So when you consider that the timeline is vast, and when it comes to harvesting the cacao, it is done by the entire village working together, from babies to elders, to the ones that are ancient. And then it is fermented gently to develop its unique signature, because that fermentation process is used in a lot of medicine plant cultures, and then dried under the sun and then hand peeled. Those cacao beans are hand peeled. Most cacao, as soon as it is harvested, gets shipped into big facilities and mechanically fermented and dried and winnowed by huge, I've seen it, I've been to these facilities, and even the most sacred ones use vast machines, but they're nowhere near as vast as you get in the commercial cacao production places, which is what most people are buying from. And then it is the most ceremonial grade cacao ever, is never touched by a machine. It's never touched by anything metal.
Yeah.
It's roasted over a living flame on a clay disc and then processed by hand by the women, surrounded by the female members of the tribe, the village, from baby to elder.
Is there something about metal that interferes with the frequency?
Yeah, absolutely. When you consider the element of metal and how hard and cutting that is, so you are cutting the essence, the spirit of the plant away.
Mm.
So
that's very interesting. When I did ayahuasca for the first time in Ecuador, I got this aversion to metal, and I took off my watch, I threw it on the ground, any rings I had on, I took my hearing aids out and threw them down. I just couldn't be near metal.
wow, what an amazing teacher.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's been forged by machines and men, not men as in the sexual version of the definition of a man, but it's man-made and not natural. So when we're working with that purity, you don't want to be touching it with metal. You can use a ceramic knife, and they're not very expensive. You just got to take care of them a little bit better because they break quite easily.
Yeah. So how do we find this genuine ceremonial grade cacao? Where do we get it from?
Yeah, so I can obviously give you the written links to put in your content below your podcast, but the Mayan Wisdom Project is a fantastic resource. They are such a profound educational center of all things sacred to the Maya culture and people's history. And even the Mayan calendar was bastardized by a Western man in America and made up to suit his massive audience. And it's a complete lie. Whole Mayan calendar thing is utter BS. So when you look at the truth about the Mayan culture, you'll see the real calendar, and all that goes with it, and what is sacred to the Maya. Like, why is cacao grown on rich jade deposits and things like that? Because of the gold that is found in the element of jade and in cacao itself. The elementals come to play. Fire so sacred? Why are candles so sacred? And why do we give our cacao to the earth first before we take our drink? And so that's one amazing resource. And they hand make their cacao, which is called Fifth Element. So I will be carrying some of that soon. And I'm just waiting for my first delivery of a female-only small farm Guatemalan collective of cacao growers and makers to arrive. And I will be sharing more about that as well as soon as
will you be supplying that for people who want them?
Yes, I'm going to be working with them through a supplier here in the UK, because what the difference is, and we can go back to the commercial side of this, is you cannot grow and ship the amount of this grade of cacao in the way most cacao companies are doing. You've already heard about how long it takes one tree to grow to the first harvest, 30 years. Expansion of cacao just cannot be sustained in that level of sacredness. It has to be brought in from mass facilities where they're monocropping the forests like they do with palm oil and coconuts and things.
And coffee.
And coffee, absolutely, yeah. So the sacredness of this medicine is beyond the hype that people are being told.
Yes, and the cacao is becoming quite a fad now, isn't it? But if it's from the wrong source, we're not doing something sacred and might not get the benefit, and it's destroying the planet.
Yeah, it's detrimental across all processes and all layers, And all we ask as medicine carriers is please don't lie about your cacao. Please don't put the ceremonial grade moniker upon your cacao.
Is that controlled at all, or can anyone just say, oh, I've got ceremonial grade cacao?
Yeah, anybody can do that. You know, we've had, you know, when I was doing the Mayan Wisdom Project training, Solveig, who is one of the amazing speakers for the Mayan people, shared about how easy that is to do, because she was approached by a very charismatic person at a meeting one day, a big meeting or a gathering, and he was buying his cacao beans at $1 a kilo, and he was selling it as ceremonial grade at a humongous markup and bragging about it. And he'd taken images off the internet and just used them, showing happy farmers in a biodiverse jungle environment. And anybody can do that, you know?
Right. So consumers need to do their due diligence and find out what the source is before they go buying.
Yeah, and that's not just for cacao. You know, we know how all our entheogenic plants are being misused across the world. And, you know, I think you and I have sort of had a little chat about Aya before. If you are not prepared to travel to the land where these medicine plants grow and sit in ceremony there at least once, then why not? Why would you import it all? I mean, we are blessed here that we have this connection, you know, and it's taken me years to do my own due diligence and come into this alignment with the truth and the most sacredness. And it's the same with any of these medicine teachers. Even here in the UK, which is another big thing of my work, is working with our nature here. People forage indiscriminately and they take everything of that plant. Mushrooms are being one of the big ones, and leave nothing. That's so destructive. So you can see it in any walk of life, the mindlessness of humans in order to seek gratification.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. I know you've stepped up recently as a medicine woman and are coming into your power now. So tell me about the recent developments.
Gosh, which ones?
Well, wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously recognizing our birthright and how magnificent we are is perhaps one of the stumblers that most of us feel, or we get caught in a trap of limiting beliefs, don't we? And we just think, oh, you know, whatever we think, whatever we're experiencing can really anchor us in a much more denser, energetic place that we can't feel any exit or escape from. And I feel that, you know, my shamanic apprenticeship and my sacred ecology apprenticeships over the last decade have been so profoundly transformational at realization of our potential, and also recognizing that every day we get to choose where we are in our frequency.
Sacred ecology, can you expand that a little? I'm not quite sure what that means.
Oh, Dennis, you've got such amazing questions. So sacred ecology, a very short definition is expanding on consciousness and communication with non-human beings. When we realize that the planet, this earth that we are so fortunate to have come on to in a human body for this experience, we get to choose what our experience is, and we make a conscious decision to do so when we're on this path to become more connected with nature. We get to choose how we experience this human life in whatever way we wish, to show the magnificence of discovering that we are nature. Most of us don't realize that we are nature, every element of us, every aspect. If we are unconscious and we just think, well, I'm going to go for a walk in the park, it's quite nice, and then go back and just sit at our computer all day and mindlessly watch TV or eat takeaway or whatever it is, we're just visiting a pretty place. But when we realize we are nature, it becomes an act of self-love, which when we love ourselves, we love every part of our life. And we realize that nature knows no other vibration but love, as does the creator. You know, we are unconditionally able to love. And that doesn't mean in a passive, oh, you can walk all over me way. It is quite a powerful warrior vibration of unconditional loving acceptance.
Yeah.
That is then whatever another human being's response is or reaction is, doesn't affect us, because it isn't about us. We can remain the calm in the eye of whatever storm, because we're anchored deeply in this earth. She carries so much communication and messages. It's learning to communicate in a realm that is super conscious, you know, connected to the heavens above and the earth below and everything around us. If anybody listening to this has ever done a lot of mushrooms or DMT, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Or ayahuasca or San Pedro or any of the medicines, because we have an otherworldly experience. But sacred ecology is about having an out-of-body psychoactive, entheogenic, close to God experience, whilst being fully present and aware of your humanity and your solidity. It's shape-shifting in and out of realities, you know, and going into the quantum field of everythingness at the same time as nothingness. So it's a dance of energetics, and I love it. I love being able to just go, I'm walking down the street, and then all of a sudden I realize I've been somewhere else while I'm still walking down the street. So that's sacred. That's a weird way of me explaining sacred ecology. It's moving, living, breathing, connected deeply to this great mother we walk on.
Yeah. And taking care of the great mother as she takes care of us.
Absolutely. It's a reciprocal relationship that we so desperately need every living person on this planet to adopt.
Yes.
Because without that, we do have the very high possibility of becoming extinct as a species. Because we're such a self-destructive, we have that self-destructive character trait of, you know, that human density of feeling trapped in a situation.
And also the danger of taking lots of other species with us. I mean, we're already, you know, destroying so many species
every day.
Yeah.
And it's also when you're working with sacred ecology and becoming nature, it's learning to be compassionately detached from the pain of that. And it doesn't mean we don't feel it deeply. We just know that we are on a course. There's two courses in this planet, two worlds, isn't there? There's the old paradigm and the new earth. And those of us that step up into the new earth frequency, it is our duty of care to this mother to redress the balance of the other.
Yeah, that new earth frequency, people talk about the earth moving from 3D to 5D or beyond, and I just wonder what that means to you.
It means a great deal of hope. to be fully anchored in the fifth dimension requires a great deal of diligence, as you know. To be able to know that our choice to connect with the higher realms of conscious potential, super consciousness, and super nature, and plugging into the light codes that are all part of, I guess, the celestial plan, whatever. We'll all have different names for it. I don't do names really. I try to communicate so people understand, but to connect in with those higher realms of consciousness and quantum frequency and anchor it through our bodies here on the earth is a 24-hour-a-day job or process, because jobs are really shitty. Well, joy of being, that's the nice way of putting job, isn't it? Living your joy of being. And also being aware of the third dimensional stuff that we cannot put to one side because it's always ever present. And that's why when we walk between worlds, that's a really good term that as shamanic practitioners, whatever we want to be, I'm a multidimensional herbalist, so that's my choice of what I call myself, an emissary or an interpreter between the higher and the lower dimensions, because we're transmuting and translating what's going on in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th dimensions, and trying to work with the density here on the third dimension.
Yeah. And as we move into those other dimensions, will we still have physical bodies? Will there still be a physical Earth? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to find out. I think approaching that with excitement and wonder of an innocent child is how I choose to view that, because who knows? I know what it's like to not have a body, because I flip out of my body every night, and often during the day I might just pop off for a bit, but and really knowing an incarnation that isn't embodied as well, I've had that so many times. And knowing the infinite potential of working in the quantum space gives us snippets of possibility, doesn't it? Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to step up, wants to live more consciously, wants to be the person that they were born to be, which is where I'm going with my next online program? What advice would you give them?
I would say face everything and rise. So fear, face everything and rise. Know that you have the choice every morning of how you choose to express and present yourself. And know that however you choose to do that is perfect for you right now. Yet always have that self-inquiry of what more can I possibly choose to experience every day. So it's an openness, I guess, to all the possibilities that most people may feel are impossible. The very word impossible is I am possible. I'm possible. So that in itself, we know words are spells and they carry.
Yes, exactly.
So changing your language is where I would state is the first step. How do you choose to talk to other people and your animals and the land
and yourself
and yourself? Because how we communicate ourselves to other people has that energetic frequency hitting us right back.
Mm.
And how we choose to speak to ourselves, likewise, hits other people.
Yeah.
So it's a change of language first, and then everything else kind of follows from there. But it's a daily process. We can't have a day off.
Yeah.
You know, and embrace the impossible, because you are fully possible and
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Quite
Yeah,
picture.
I heard recently that fear is just misdirected imagination.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So direct your imagination in a useful direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And spend time dreaming.
Mm.
You know, we live in such a busy world, such a humanly constructed slave planet.
Mm.
And this is the sadness that we humans have created it over the decades, the hundreds of years since we settled. And that's a big word, isn't it? What are you settling for? And
Mm.
throw that in the bin and
Yeah.
rise higher. Because when we became settled, we lost our connection to the land
Yeah.
and all that is. And then we lost our humanity along the way. But it's not too late. You know, that's why we're here doing the work that we're doing, Dennis, to help people remind themselves how flipping magnificent they are and their true being, which is an out of body being.
Mm. Yeah. Much food to chew on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talking of food, you mentioned you went from being raw vegan to you're a meat eater now. Um, how did that happen?
So there's two aspects, I think. I'm hearing this message quite often, and Ant and I became plant-based because we felt the energetic of how animals are kept and how they're treated and how they're farmed. And then when I met Cacao, I naturally transitioned to raw vegan, and that was an amazing journey. You know, I learned an awful lot. I trained with some incredible people, and I became an excellent chef with my own raw vegan school. And I still love those skills that I learned and that knowledge of amazing plant medicine along the way. However, I think we kept it going too long for our physical body. I always was one that followed the belief that if you eat animals, you can't be a conscious being. You're a few choice words that I choose not to share here, but I think people can gather. And that to eat meat, you made you an evil person and all this thing. And I believed that for quite some time. But when I was diagnosed with autoimmune illness, partway through this journey, it was actually before I became raw. I actually managed to reverse it, to come off medication by being raw vegan. So it's an amazing way of cleaning up the cellular body and connecting you in with a higher consciousness, is to eat only light, light food, not touched by heat, and all that. But I realized that there was a disharmony there, was a dissonance, a disconnect, because a lot of what we were eating was imported from far away, grown in artificial conditions. And if you research it, you know, you'll find this rabbit hole to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And we both became quite poorly. And I was always a chunky vegan. I could never get my weight down fully. And it was because my endocrine system was going into meltdown. And it is still not. I'm still seeking the ultimate button to press to reset all that, but it's getting there. It's a long thing, reversing an autoimmune illness, which I don't let define me. And so I kind of met a guy called Phil Escott, who had a similar journey to me. He was raw vegan, transcendental meditation, macrobiotics for many, many years. And he ended up being bedridden, excruciating psoriatic arthritis and other illnesses. And he met somebody that introduced him to carnivore. And within, I think, 6 months, he was just sitting on his couch eating steak, and he completely healed himself. Just steak, nothing else. Steak and salt and water. It's called the lion diet, which is the most exclusory, as in excluding all other foodstuffs, way of healing the body. So I've been playing with this for a while. And I have not lost my heightened super consciousness at all. In fact, when I was raw vegan and vegan, I was out of my body. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to check out. And I nearly did several times because I found this planet too much. And I didn't know how to control that super conscious awakening. Now I am fully embodied. My soul and my human self are fully integrated, and I make sure I'm doing my work every day to ensure that that stays so, that I'm not going back into the third dimensional egoic state, unless I need to run away from somebody trying to attack me. They'd only do it once. But yeah, that's the difference, is now I'm fully empowered as well. You know, I know my resilience and my resources and where they all are. Whereas before I would spin out a lot and just didn't know how to be a human, having a spiritual experience or whatever you want to call it. But now I realize, you know, I have realized through going down so many rabbit holes and researching, because I didn't want to start eating animals again. I thought it was terrible. Why would I want to do that? But when you strip it back and you take away our constructed societal programs, where everything is manufactured and we have everything at the touch of a button to order, or you can go to the supermarket and buy food-like products, you realize how disassociated we are from the truth of our humanness as hunter-gatherers. So going back to when I said before, it all kind of went wrong when we became settled, and then the Romans imprisoned us and all that malarkey began of enslaving other humans and the hierarchies. We were all hunter-gatherers. And now my choice is to approach my life as my ancestors would and eat foods highly aligned to that lifestyle. So wild plants, foraged fruits in season, no imported food apart from cacao, of course, and my other plant medicine teachers, which a lot of them you can grow here, not cacao though, because she only grows around the equator. Again, as above, so below, north and south, east and west. So that is my big challenge that I have set myself and Anthony for the next 12 months, starting on spring equinox, which perfectly aligns with my amazing sacred ecology course beginning, to live wild for a year, 80% wild food only, and that includes wild meat and wild plants. Plants are medicine. They always have been. And our ancestors would have only eaten tubers and roots in the starvation periods of the year. We would have hunted and preserved the fat of the animals, the skins we would have worn, etc. And we would have foraged medicinal plants and eaten fruits and nuts. You know, so that is our true nature, is to live throughout the season. Not everybody can, and I wouldn't even challenge anybody to do what we're about to do. It's hardcore. Really, probably the most hardcore. I thought raw vegan was hardcore, but this is one step beyond that. Because if I can't get out and forage, I'm going to go hungry. But our ancestors would. So, you
foraging, is that trapping animals as well, or hunting animals?
Yeah, definitely. I'm researching gun licenses at the moment and being able to carry a live ammunition on our van, what laws there are, what we have to do, but also connecting in with other hunters and what have you, because what purer way of living is to actually gather everything you can possibly yourself. And the 20% that isn't going to be wild is going to be to ensure we have our fat sustained, because fat is what fuels us. It's what keeps us healthy.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates, carbohydrates are empty calories. They just fill us up and give us too much sugary energy, whereas fat and protein is the magic bullet, really. So, but it shows you how skewed we have become over the decades of being fed information that isn't true.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful book called The Work That Reconnects, and I think it's Joanna Macy.
It is. I've been a follower of Joanna Macy for many years. I met her in the USA.
That's right. I remember you telling me when we first met. Yeah. So The Work That Reconnects, Sacred Ecology.
Yes.
And lovingly, I am doing this everything I do because I'm passionate and in love with it. I do this for me. Whatever we do in life, most people, they do it for other people first, and they put themselves last. And I think, why? We've been so conditioned, haven't we, Dennis, to put everybody else first. Your boss, your partner, your kids, your family, your country. Oh my God, that's a really powerful one. And who comes at the bottom of the bloody pile? Even the dog gets put first before us. Which, to be fair, yes, in ours as well, they come. But yeah, but they're on our wavelength, are our pets, companions. When we put them first, we're actually saying yes to putting us first, because it's a selfless act.
Yeah.
So really, our animals, and I work with 0 Point work with animals as well to redress trauma in both ourselves and our animal companions.
Yeah.
And you know how powerful the 0 Point is of nothingness here happening, nothing, no thought, just being.
Yeah.
When we create that loving relationship with our soul self and our human self, that's really the most important thing to do, because we can then serve fully, because we fill our cup first. Most people pour from an empty cup every single day, and they wonder why they get sick, why they're exhausted, why they turn to narcotics or alcohol or numbing themselves with food or TV or whatever. All these addictions is because we don't put this self-love as our number one priority. So my programs and my sessions are all about self-love, and that self-realization that you are a magnificent being of divine light. That's what my program is about, my courses and my sessions.
So what's your ideal client?
My ideal client is somebody that is not afraid of the depths that they can reach to become that magnificent self, and not fearful of going into places, opening doors and stepping through them that will change their life unrecognizably, and isn't afraid of doing that and changing their entire environment, and taking a risk of losing everything they thought they were or were meant to be, and shedding the titles they've been given or accepted or given themselves. So that's
the labels off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the great shedding. And in the medicine world, we have the great dismantling of the self. And so my people are those that feel the fear and rise through it. Are you being unfair to yourself? Are you one of these that just lets everybody take from you? Are you having burnout? Are you completely convinced that the life you have got is all that you have? You know, or are you wanting to become one of the earth guardians, the magnificent beings of light, and fully embody your soul? Because many of us don't even realize our soul intelligence is the utmost creator of all that we are. And again, we shut it out. We shut out because we think they're fanciful moments. You know, we think, oh, that's just me being dreamy. It's all rubbish. Why am I listening to those silly voices? No, that's your goddamn team telling you how flipping special you are and trying to wake you up into that fact that we should not settle for a life less than amazing. And we have become so conditioned. And I'm all about breaking every single goddamn contract and vow, oath, chain that you have wrapped yourselves in across dimensions and lifetimes, and finding out your true magnificence through your own self-devotion. Because life will never be the same again. So it's somebody that isn't fearful of the depths of their soul self.
Or maybe they are fearful and want to overcome that fear.
Absolutely. And it's the bravery to do that, you know, if they're ready. You know.
I read somewhere that bravery is not brave people have fear. It's just they don't let it stop them moving forward with whatever they want to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So it's good to be afraid because it keeps you sharp. And it keeps you open to the infinite possibilities of what could be.
Yeah. And I've found in my own journey that terror and excitement are so very similar, and one can switch into the other in an instant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how can they work with you one-on-one?
They can work with me one-on-one by connecting with me. I can give you the links.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And would that be on Zoom, or are you also doing face-to-face?
Mostly on Zoom, because we realize that we are a global community now, and not everyone can get to work face-to-face. I do offer one-to-ones face-to-face.
Yeah.
It just depends because we are obviously nomadic. We don't live in a traditional way. We travel.
Yeah.
You know, and we're actually building something over in Portugal as well.
Oh, wonderful.
People can come and immerse in the beauty under the heat sun of Portugal as well from next year. So we've got here in the UK and Portugal, which we're really excited about.
Yeah.
Meeting those medicine plants in a different, completely different environment is fantastic when you can travel to do that. And so if anybody does want one-to-one sessions, that's perfectly fine. On request, we can do that. Appreciate that.
Well, it's been a fascinating talk, Peace. I've really enjoyed finding more about you. We've interacted quite a bit already, but you just amaze me with the depth of your knowledge and wisdom, and may your work flourish.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm learning every day. There isn't a day goes by a message and a lesson doesn't come forward, and I just embrace all of it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. We know the gold that is in all these subtleties that we experience every day. And I'm deeply appreciative of you and the work that you do. And I love the fact that you're here, Dennis, and looking forward to speaking with you on my podcast soon too.
That'll be great. Okay.
Yeah. Amazing.
So let's sign off here, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great day, Dennis.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Soul Seekers podcast. You can find about Peace's work at peaceravenwood.co.uk, and you can find about Dennis Richards at lightenup.co.